Today we're going to solve quadratic equations, and we're going to use square roots to do that today. Now, quadratic equations, quadratic means to the second power, so you're going to see x squared in these equations today. And remember, when we're solving equations, you always get rid of stuff by doing its inverse operation, its opposite. So the opposite of something squared would be the square root. So that's what we're going to do today. So when we have something like 2x squared minus 98 equals 0, first thing we're going to do is isolate the x squared. Now, imagine that was just 2x minus 98 equals 0. First, you'd get rid of the minus 98. Opposite, plus 98. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add 98 first to both sides. These would cancel out, so we'd have 2x squared equals 98. Now again, if we're trying to isolate towards just x squared, we'd have to get rid of that 2. Currently, it's 2 times x squared, so to cancel that out, we would divide by 2 on both sides, which would give us x squared equals 49. Here's the one new step today. To cancel out x squared, you square root it. Do it to both sides. Now, if I said, what's the square root of 49? I'm saying, what times itself gives you 49? And you'd be like, 7. True. But also, negative 7 times negative 7 would still be positive 49. So when you square root numbers, you have to include the positive and negative version. Easy way to do that is you could just write this plus or minus. So x equals plus or minus 7. 7 or negative 7. If you substitute them into the original equation, they both work. So let's try a couple more. Maybe. There we go. 3 more. So we're going to get it down to the whatever squared first. So on A, it's t squared minus 25. We got to get rid of the minus 25. We're going to add it to get rid of it. If you do it to one side, do it to the other. Because negative 25 plus 25 is 0. So we just have t squared, and then 0 plus 25 is 25. We cancel out the square by square rooting both sides. T equals plus or minus, because we have to include the positive and negative. Square root of 25 is 5. So positive 5 or negative 5. There's only one number that has one square root, and that's 0, because there's no such thing as negative 0. And you can't square root negatives. You might get an equation where it's like you're square rooting negative 100. Now, the square root of 100 is 10 or negative 10, but you can't square root negative numbers with the standard number system. So if you get to a point where you're square rooting a negative, you would throw in the old no solution in Algebra 1. All right, here we go. 3n squared plus 12 equals 12. I know we're going to subtract 12 first. 3n squared equals 12 minus 12 is 0. Then we would get rid of the 3, which we would divide to get rid of that. 0 divided by anything is 0. N squared equals 0. And then here's where we will square root both sides, and this is what I was just telling you. You wouldn't say plus or minus 0 because there's no such thing as negative 0. So you just say 0. N equals 0. Not too bad. 2g squared plus 32 equals 0. I see plus 32. I got to get rid of that. 2g squared. 0 minus 32 is negative 32. The 2 in front, I'm going to have to divide it. G squared equals negative 16, and then we'll square root both sides. Now you see 16, you're like, 4 plus or minus 4, but this is what I was just talking about. You can't square root negative numbers with the normal number system. So since I can't do that, I would just say no solution. Or in the future, you might say no real solutions or no real numbers, but no solution for now. Oh, great. Now we just have a few to practice. I'm going to pick one from each row, and I'm going to think of the nastiest one I can find. Ooh, 10, 11, or 12. 10 and 11, all you have to do is square root them. So let's go with 12 because we'll actually have 2 steps on that one. We have to isolate that m squared. So first we would add the 225 to cancel out minus 225. M squared equals 225. And then we square root to cancel out the square. We say plus or minus, and the square root of 225 is 15. 15 times 15 is 225. That wasn't too bad. I want to do number 15. So I see this 4 in front that I have to get rid of. I'm going to divide it by 4. Now you could do decimals here, but I would actually have you not do decimals. We're going to leave it as a fraction, 25 over 4. If you could simplify it, great, but we can't. So we're going to leave it 25 over 4. And then we do what we do. When we are canceling out a square, we square root it. When you square root a fraction, you're really square rooting each part. So we'll say r equals plus or minus. We're always going to do the plus or minus unless it's 0 or negative. And you square root each one. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 4 is 2. So we have plus or minus 5 over 2. That's it. That wasn't too bad, right? Some people freak out if they see fractions. No dice, no panic. We got this. All right, one more. Oh, wow. Whoa! Let's go with, we'll do 16 and 18 because they're not too bad, but, you know, they each have something kind of interesting happen. Number 16, I would divide by the 64 first. Now, you don't have to simplify here, but boy, oh boy, would I recommend it. 4 goes into 4 and 64. So if I did 4 divided by 4, it's 1. 64 divided by 4 is 16. And then we would square root both sides. P equals plus or minus, and you square root each one. The square root of 1 is 1, square root of 16 is 4. So you have 1/4 and negative 1/4. All right, number 18. You could move the 27 to the other side. If you were doing that, you would subtract it. However, I think actually on this one, because we have negative y squared, let's just go ahead and add that to the other side. And then it'll be positive over there. 27 equals y squared. And then you would square root both sides. And we'll say plus or minus 5 point something equals y. Let's see, square root of 27. 5.196, let's call it 5.2-ish for y. Now, if you were to do that problem a different way instead, we could have subtracted the 27. Here, I'm going to rewrite it for a sec. 27 minus y squared equals 0. So you could have subtracted 27 from both sides. Negative y squared equals negative 27. Now that's like negative 1y squared. So you could divide both sides by negative 1, which gives you y squared equals positive 27. And then you would square root it from there. And you get the plus or minus 5.2 there. Either way it works out. Either way is a cute, adorable solution.